Hi guys, it is now day 3 of fermentation week here with our remote distance learning, and I'm getting ready to try my third um, fermentation project. First we made off some sauerkraut, which a lot of you are participating in, and hopefully it's turning out well for you. And then I went on for my second attempt of fermenting yogurt, which by the way was a resounding success. The family loves it, and I think it's going to be in the regular rotation for breakfast menus here going forward. And today we're going to go for the holy grail of fermented vegetables, in my opinion, which is some amazing kosher dill pickles. You know, the great big ones, the kind that you can hold with a whole fist and just munch and crunch away on. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be making some kosher dill pickles, and with a little bit of zing, a little bit of hot spiciness to them, because a little spicy dill pickle is a pretty good thing to throw on a sandwich or just gnaw on when you're feeling a little hungry. So we're going to go through the recipe together and film the whole process from start to finish. No cuts, no breaks, no editing, any of that. So let's go from there. So you get what you get, and let's see how it turns out. All right, so first thing is we're going to start out with cucumbers. Pickling cucumbers, I got these from a grocery store. They are about the right size. They're about 3 to 5 inches in length, and I've got 3 pounds of these. Now, one thing that we want to do is we want to cut off the stems of these cucumbers, because the stems, not actually, that's the blossom end. The stem end actually has an enzyme that can make cucumbers and pickles go kind of soft and squishy, and we want crunchy. So we're just going to cut the end of that off. So I'm going to just kind of narrate as we focus on the cutting board down below here. So I'm just going to cut the ends off like so for all of my cucumbers real quick. Okay. So starts with that. My cucumbers have all been washed, and they're clean, because you don't want any extra bacteria or mold or anything that might be lingering on the skin of the cucumber to be possibly contaminating the pickles. So we're just going to cut the stems off and go on to the next step. So cut these, and I am just taking the end off because I want every last bit of my pickle. I don't want to give up any bit of it. It's hard to pass up a really good pickle when it's done right. And that one has kind of a blossom still stuck on it, so I'll cut that end off too. I think you can leave the blossom ends on. I don't think that'll cause too much of an issue, but that one was a little excessive. Okay, almost there. Now, which end's the stem on this? I think this is the stem end, and the blossom has a little bit of a bad spot on it, so I'll cut that off. Stem end. Starting to build a little pyramid of pickles here. Or I guess they're not pickles yet, they're cucumbers. Alright, I got them all there on my plate. Clean up my cutting board, clean up these little scraps a little bit before we move on to the next step. Okay, next step here, now that we have our pickles washed and cleaned and trimmed, is to take our water solution, which is going to be a mixture of salt. This is 5 1/2 ounces of salt with 1 gallon of water. Now, it's very important that if you are using water, it comes from a city water source and they add chlorine to the water, that you do not use that. Chlorine will kill the bacteria and you will not get a pickle. So tap water that's filtered from a well source like we have here, or you may just use bottled water. But I use 5 1/2 ounces by weight of salt for 1 gallon of water, and I'm putting that in and I'm giving that a stir. And we want to dissolve that salt into our water. I use kosher salt.
Some people will only want to use pickling salt. The finer grain does dissolve in water better, but with some stirring here, I think we'll still get the same result with our kosher salt. In fact, I'm not hearing the little salt granules at the bottom scraping along the plastic, so I think we're good. I think we'll let that sit off to the side and just wait for us. Okay, so our next step is to prepare our jar with our spices. So we're using our 1 gallon ball mason jar again. This is going to be our pickle jar today, and I'm going to start off with 1 teaspoon of dill seed. That's going to add a lot of that dill flavor. Dill seed's very concentrated. So I'm going to use 1 teaspoon, and my 1 teaspoon is too big to go into the jar, but 2 halves make a whole, so that works. All right, so we have 1 teaspoon of dill seed, and then we're going to add dill fronds. The recipe calls for a single dill frond, but that's kind of puny, so I'm gonna kind of double up. I got some nice big ones here. I'm gonna put 2 of them in just because I don't think you can have too much dill in there. Okay, now we are doing kosher dills, so kosher dills require garlic. Okay, and the best way to deal with the garlic is before it goes in to the we want to crush it. Okay, before it goes in the jar, we want to crush it. That's going to release some juices, start to release the flavor. So best way to do that is take the garlic. This is peeled, and I'm just going to place my knife flat, give it a little squish. That's going to start to break apart the fibers and release that garlic flavor. There's 2, and recipe technically calls for 2, but I'm going to throw a 3rd in there because garlic is good. Okay. All right. So next thing then is to add in our next spice, which is to have 1 tablespoon of black peppercorns. These are whole peppercorns. That's going in. And for our heat, we have some crushed red pepper flakes. So we're going to put those in, little peppery goodness going right in there. Okay. So now we've got our spices in. The next thing is to get the pickles in. All right. Now we don't want to just plunk them in there. We want to kind of arrange them because we got to make all the pickles fit. So I'm going to place these in here so that they are more or less stacked in nice and neat together. Red pepper flakes, it's getting my throat, I think. That's a big pickle there. Okay, and we're getting there. We're getting really close. Should have enough room for all these guys to fit. Maybe not vertically, but we're going to get them all in there. I'm going to put these sideways, I guess. All right. So there, now we've got all our pickles in the jar with room to spare. Okay. So the next step is, real simply, we're going to add in the water, and we want to fill the jar up enough to cover the pickles with a couple of inches of water. I'm going to look down in here and make sure I don't have any undissolved salt. I don't see anything in the bottom, so I think we're good to go. Pour this in carefully here so I don't make a mess. Fill that up. Couple inches above the pickles. There we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give this just a little tap, and the pickles start to come up. They want to float a bit. So we're going to solve that problem right here. Okay. Now, if I had the tool, I could use it. It's called a pickle weight, which is basically a glass disc that will fit inside the jar lid, and it will sit down and it'll hold the pickles underneath the water. We use the glass jar for our sauerkraut, and that works fine. I don't have a glass jar handy, so what I want to do is I'm going to just go with a very, very simple solution. I'm going to get a zip bag like this, and what I'm going to do, I'll set the jar aside just for a second, is I'm going to take some of this extra saltwater solution that I have, and I'm going to pour it into the bag, and the bag is going to be my weight. So I'm just going to push this down into this measuring cup and curl the sides over so I can pour it in. I'm not going to pour the whole thing in, but I'm going to pour enough that it'll weigh it down and hold those pickles down. And the reason I use my salt water is that if this bag does happen to have a leak or a hole in it or something like that, then I'm not changing the dilution of my brine solution. Okay, so get the water in there and zip up my bag. Now I'll place the bag into the jar, and it will weigh down my pickles, hopefully not spilling anything out, and that shouldn't be a problem. All right, so now I've got my pickle sitting here. You know what, I'm actually looking at this and I'm thinking I got a little too much water in there. I'm going to take a little water out of my weight. I just want it to push the pickles down. I don't want to displace so much that I lose some of my seasoning. So a little trial and error here. Lost a little bit of my red pepper flakes, but that's okay. We won't miss those too badly. There's still plenty in there to make a nice zesty pickle. So now let's try this and see where we're at. All right, that looks just about perfect. All right, so now this is ready to start fermenting. So what's going to happen is, just like the sauerkraut, we want to put this somewhere around the 65 to 70 degree range for 3 days. And we're just going to let it sit. After 3 days, next step is to come back and check it, and we're going to be looking for that white scum layer that's on top, that calm yeast that's in there that might build on the surface. We could scrape that off and get that out of the way. We'll also clean the bag while we're at it, just in case any of it's stuck to the bag. And 3 days it's going to sit, and then I'll be checking it once a day just for that skimming of off the scum. And then it's going to ferment for 6 to 10 days total. At that point, I can take it and put it in the refrigerator and start munching away on it. If I want to, I can pour out the pickle juice and strain it through a cheesecloth or a filter. And then I can jar it up with a nice tight-fitting lid, and it will last for a couple of months in the refrigerator. I can guarantee these pickles will not last that long because we will be eating them, no doubt. So about 6 to 10 days from now, these cucumbers are going to be nice, delicious, kosher dill pickles. So that's how you do it. And here by the end of next week, towards the very end of our distance learning time, might have a good pickle for us to munch on and have as a celebration to the end of the year. That's all there is to it. We'll talk to you later, and thanks for watching.